Seriously, who do you hang out with?
The radical left, the Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
So, guys, welcome back.
Hello!
Now the main course, I would say. Yeah, we all read like this interesting book, I would say, from our friend Mohamed Mbougar, I suppose, Sarr, I don't know.
Mohamed Mbougar Sarr.
Mbougar Sarr. He's an author from Senegal. He won like a big prize in France with this book. What's the name of the book?
Prix Goncourt.
Exactly. And this book has been like going around already some years, but it's has become like a critical acclaim. And I would like to start like with the name of the book. In English, they translate it as The Most Secret Memory of Men.
Same as French.
Same in French.
Literal translation.
It's taken from a quote from Roberto Bolano, our good friend. I think it's also a big part of our friendship, and I think it's really nice when you discover new friends through old friends. You know, like when some author like quotes someone you like, it's like, oh shit, you're one of my.
I like you already.
I like you already. So this book starts with a quote from the Savage Detectives, and we will let Dash to read the quote because this is how this book starts, and then we can talk a little bit before on what is this based, and like the content of the book. Yeah.
And Dash is beautifully perfect English.
In English,
not like ours.
Not like
The Most Secret Memory of Man. For a while, criticism travels side by side with the work. Then criticism vanishes, and it's the readers who keep pace. The journey may be long or short, then the readers die, one by one, and the work continues on alone, although new criticism and new readers gradually fall into step with it along its path. Then criticism dies again, and the readers die again, and the work passes over a trail of bones on its journey toward solitude. To come near the work, to sail in her wake, is a sign of certain death, but new criticism and new readers approach her tirelessly and relentlessly and are devoured by time and speed. Finally, the work journeys irremediably alone in the great vastness. And one day the work dies, as all things must die and come to an end. The sun and the earth and the solar system and the galaxy and the most secret memory of man.
Perfect. So, yes, guys, I think like it explained like one of the topics of the book, why writing. You know, like this solitary path. What does it mean to write? You write a book, and this book maybe gets critical acclaim, maybe gets readers, maybe it loses like the critical acclaim, it loses the readers, and it goes and goes and goes through history and literature. And at the end is the same common place for all things, the completely nothingness, let's say. And let's start about it. Like, what do you think about this quote? What do you think in general of his discourse?
Can I add a little bit the part in the book? Maybe it will be a little bit of a spoiler.
Okay.
Yes, it's fine. So for the listeners, it's a bit clearer if they have not read the book that there is a writer who writes the book, which is genius and amazing, and he puts his whole soul into it, and then the critics kind of destroy it. In a way,
they first love it,
then they destroy it. Yes, and then he has this whole idea of saying that one can read things wrongly, and it's a sin. So just a bit of a recap of this moment.
You know, when I asked him to, before we start shooting, and asked him like to check the 333 pages, the fun thing is that there is this letter, and I mean, we're getting a little bit away from what we started, but sin in French is péché. And in the letter that he sent to explain kind of what he went through, he talks about this fisherman in the river, and that everyone is drowning. All the fishermen are drowning, but two, I think, if I'm not wrong. And the connection here is that fisherman in French is pêcheur. And pêcheur, you can you can use it as pêcheur as fisherman, but also as sinner. And so he literally play on that both.
I did not.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to double check the Spanish version, because he plays on that both symbolic way of saying pêcheur, fisherman, and péché.
Yeah, I think I will just like talk about like the original story, and then we can go to the book. So
we got carried away.
The original story is also fiction. Like it's insane. So what I'm going to tell now, it's the real thing, the thing that happened and that inspired a little bit like this book. In 1968, an author from Mali called Jambo Olugumen, or that's why I pronounce it, he wrote this book named The Bounds to Violence. And it was called at that moment like a post-colonialist book, because he talked about a fictional kingdom in Africa, but he talked about like the violence, and he was one of the first authors to not talk about like this mythical Africa magic realism, everything was beautiful before, but he talks about like
exotic,
exactly, not this exoticism, but talking about also like the violence, and that's why actually like the Western like kind of like it. And he won this really important prize, the Renaudot, if I don't know how you pronounce it, Renaudot, whatever.
It's not that, I didn't know the prize.
You didn't know.
Did anyone say that this book was pro-colonialism?
No. It's not pro-colonial, but it demystified the pre-colonial period, in the sense that pre-colonial there was violence, there were empires that sold the population into slavery.
The happy savage, how they like to put it. And I was reading like Le Monde, like the newspaper. He called it Jambo Olugumen. He's one of the rare intellectuals of international stature presented to the world by Black Africa. It's like so fucking racist, but they thought they were doing like a compliment. Right. Like, oh wow, even black people can write, like it's like so
in the 60s.
In the 60s, we're in the 60s. The thing is that this book gets published, a lot of acclaim, and there's one passage of the book, less than 2 pages, and he describes like as a scene, and somebody said like, okay, this scene looks a lot from a scene from another book from Graham Greene. I think he's a German author.
Yeah, and also another one.
And Andre Schwartz, no? So they looked for these people. Andre Schwartz, he said like, oh wow, like if he used some of my literature to get inspired, like absolutely, like nice. But Graham Greene, he made like a lawsuit, and he accused him of plagiarism just for this scene, non-quoted scene, and of course they devoured him. Like they were like, okay, for 2 pages, and he didn't even try to defend himself. He just like he understood like what does it mean to be a black guy from Mali, right? And like he felt like he just went back to Mali, disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to this great intellectual of that time that got completely destroyed. So now this, I don't know if you guys want to explain like the plot of the book.
So to be honest, like the book starts by dedicating the book to Jambo Olugumen. And I personally haven't checked the story until he mentioned it, and today when I looked into it. So when I read the book, I didn't really got into the story of the guy previous. And I don't know, this is my personal view, but I would suggest people, if they want to read it, to not look into the story. Just read the book how it is. But I want to go back to the passage that Dash read in the beginning. Because I think this is a core in the approach towards literature and towards creative work. this dichotomy between the creator, the writer, and the oeuvre itself. And I think the passage, put it beautifully in the sense that the oeuvre will always overlive overlive critics and overlive the creator himself.
Yeah.
I think Bolano also was the one that said like the time that you just finished the oeuvre, it's not yours anymore. I'm not sure, but anyways.
But he would have researched it.
Yeah, but I think if you think of an oeuvre on a non-human life scale, it transcends that egocentric need of the creator, of the writer, to be acclaimed, to be known, to be, and it directly gets back to the question of the intent. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what the passage and what the book is globally tackles is the intent. What are you trying to do by?
Why are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
What are you trying to? Why are you trying to write? Mm-hmm. And I think through all the characters, the different characters that exist in the book, you can find so many different intents and even diametrically opposed intents. And so I don't know, like how is the oeuvre approach and the need of writing and for example, I'm just gonna jump in, but when Siga D, for example, mentions how that nothing is, I would prefer to read it actually.
Okay.
But when she talks about that nothing in human is special, not even our not pain, but when you not even our pain,
wounds.
Yeah, not our wounds. Nothing is special and human, and that writing should not come from pain. And when you go afterwards and you see his friend from Congo, that he gets back to the source of pain, and that what makes his that's what starts his need to write. So that's literally the source. Why do you write?
Absolutely.
It is about, I think it's very interesting what you're saying, that there are so many different reasons to write. And if you see among these characters, there's Sigari, who writes all the time about her father in a way.
Yeah.
And through her hate towards him, she kind of like stays connected to him. Yeah. So this I see as writing as an answer to life. And then Aleman, one of the basically this mysterious writer in the book,
mythical,
very mythical, he composes his whole work from pieces from other writers, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what he's then criticized for, but also that's the genius of the book, as it described. And so here I see that's the way of writing as an answer to art, not only to life. And this, but it seems to me there's a bit of this conflict between these two very different ways of creating art.
And of feeling art.
Yes, exactly. So it's as a way of creating art as an answer to life versus as an answer to other art, and also the way of reading it as experiencing it versus as understanding the concepts and like this play on other works because of that. And what I find interesting in this book, it's often a bit like snobbishly frowned upon this experiential type of reading. When you read and you're in a way, you feel something, and that's why you read it, and so that it's in a way it's shown that it's cooler to read and understand the whole play behind it, and you're a sinner if you do not get it. Mm-hmm. And I do not agree.
Well, first of all, just to put the listeners or people that are watching the YouTube, I will try to summarize in just some sentence what's the book about, and then we can go from it. No,
please.
Look, in simple terms, it's presented on different voices, a little bit like the Savage Detectives. You have these different voices contributing to the story, and the main voice is the main character. He's kind of an heteronym of the real author, of Mohamed. He's
Mbougar Sarr. He's Senegalese. He's from the same village.
He left Senegal. His name is Diegane Faye. he left Senegal to live in Paris, and he wants to become a writer, and he published like his first book that was received like okay-ish somehow. And then as it starts, it's really interesting. First of all, like the first questions, what does it mean for a black man to leave their country and write in French, a language that was imposed in his country, and try to write not only for practically white people, but to get the recognition of your colonizer, no? And this is a really first approach to what does literature means, and literature in which you're trying to use a voice that was imposed on you, and you want to get to be as good as them and to be on their same level. And this author, this Diegane, he founds like this book that is called what's the name of the
Labyrinth of Inhumanity.
The Labyrinth of Inhumanity, and like mirroring the real story, but in the 30s more or less, there was this unknown author, T.C. Elimanem, and he wrote like this book that contains the everything, you know, like this book is insane, and it says everything, but there are like not very much copies. And then after that he's accused of plagiarism. Should we say why? Because this is part. What this guy does is it was discovered after winning a big prize that he took literally phrases from different books, and he constructed a new story using different phrases, different books, different quotations, but he never quoted them. And then he's accused of plagiarism, and he doesn't even try to defend himself because he feels so disappointed that nobody understood the book, you know, like
the intention,
the invention,
the
like the genius of it. It's not right. It's like having constructed like the story. And I think I will have to throw here like my love Borges, of course,
which he mentions,
of course.
They chilled around together in Argentina.
It's there's something like called authenticity. What the fuck does authenticity means, you know? Like where's the genius of the creation, you know?
I think the question of that get asked a lot, and that Diegane Fay asks a lot, is like, did Eliman really aspire to write the book that kills all the other book, like that Biblicide, that he like killing the bibliothèque, like doing that as he called it essential oeuvre, like that book that deletes everything else, or did he write to create original oeuvre while plagiarizing other writers? So the proof of the non-originality, that originality does not exist. Or is it to write the ultimate perfect book, the singular essential one, or all the above? Like it's like the insistent, like the book basically, all the characters of the book read the Labyrinth of the Inhumane, and all of them had that very complex reception to it. All of them are amazed by it. All of them claim it as genius, but everyone has his own interpretation of the intent and of the book.
Yes, and here we come back also to the foreword, which this quote, which basically asks the question: to whom does the work belong? To whom does the book belong? Does it belong to the readers, or does it belong to the writer? And the Eliman character, the mythical writer, he constantly calls others sinners, and he literally, spoiler alert, he kind of mythically kills all the critics who misunderstood the book, even never praising it.
But although, that's part of the magical realism of the book, and the sense it's a lot. But we understand also at the end of the book that his journey was not actually, he wasn't killing anyone. He was following the person who killed his best friend, and that's basically what was his journey about. Is about vengeance in some sense, and also if you think of his coming, like that scene with Sigadi and her friend, and the friend contracted some disease after, like it's all that like I think the assassin in that aspect is part of the extra layer of mythology.
Of mythology, like there's a lot of magical realism. I really like this idea. Like a friend of mine, I don't know if he wanted to say like this way, but he was reading this book and I was like, are you liking it? And he's like, not that much. And I was like, why? It's like, it feels that it's more a book for writers than for readers.
I agree.
And I think it's genius. It's like, absolutely, this is a book for writers. It's not for readers.
Absolutely.
I think that this book talks more to people that have sit down and ask themselves, what do I want to say? Why does it make sense? And it's exactly the book about that.
Yeah, and not necessarily writers, any creator would feel it. Yeah.
And then there is this phrase, write, don't write. At the very end, that talked to me so intimately. So we also, in this group, we met as a part of a writing club, right? So it really spoke so deeply to me. And it seems to me that as every good book, it doesn't give you an answer. It asks the question about whether you're a sinner of reading it wrong, or it's all life is the answer. But I should say that in the book, in the end, we can see that the Aleman, the mythical writer character, he in the end was looking for his mother. He was looking to avenge his friend. So life ends up being an answer. Or Sigurdi's sex scene with the Diagan also. She says like,
that's
stop
brilliant.
Stop narrating.
Fuck me.
Stop living through literature.
Absolutely. I believe that, and it's really interesting because in one part they ask the narrator. They ask him, okay, what's this book about? This book that you say it's so great. What is it about? And he answers, great books are about nothing. And it's difficult for us to do a podcast about this book because it's about nothing. It's so ambitious and wants to talk about so many things that you can't say like, okay, this is the plot. Okay, we're just like delineating some stuff. And another part of the book that I like is like he talks about the first book he published that for the critics it was like a good book. But one of his friends, one of these people that feels literature as something ambitious that has to talk about something more, he goes to him and he tells him like, if you are not going to write something that makes somebody's soul tremble, don't write it. And it's like, that's the thing, And I think there's no good or there. I don't know. You can't always say like, this is something you have to write about or not, but for me, my way of interpreting like art in general, it's mostly about like the intention. Okay, like it's like, what are you trying to convey? What are you trying to say? Are you just feeling like the empty air, or are you trying to achieve something else that is sometimes above the story? Like this book is ambitious in the sense that it's not about the story itself, it's like the upper layers,
Yeah, I mean, I would a bit disagree with you on the sense that it's a book about. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a book about nothing. In the sense that I would say that if you read, for example, The Savage Detectives, that's really a book about nothing. Not in the sense about nothing, but like there is no plot. Mm-hmm. There is no. There is a plot, but the plot is absolutely not necessary or not important at all to the book. Here, I was generally surprised by the fact that there is a plot and that there is an ending and that there is a climax and that there is a resolution at the end, in the sense that you tend to understand the story through Diagan Fai's eyes. But what is why I say that I don't think that the book is about nothing. I don't think that. It's because, first of all, it does start by those huge Nephilims, those big maxims of the oeuvre, the
which I found discursive, and this is the thing I have against. But we will take about.
Yeah, But the book touches upon the reality of a non-Western writer and how to be received, acclaimed, how to go through life, or how to pierce into that very elitist bubble of Western literature as a foreigner, or as he called it in the book, as a cultural bastard, and how that pressure, how that oppression impacts your work and your oeuvre and even your identity and your persona, and you become that whitewashed writer, or that de-interested, or even déraciné. Uprooted from where you belong, or from where you come from, at least, or that doesn't resonate with you anymore.
Escaping minority badge, that's how it's called. To be honest, like, for me, it's really resonating a lot, also because I come from Eastern Europe. I'm also a woman, and not in writing specifically, but in business, actually. I felt a lot in the beginning absolutely having a minority badge, and I used it.
Tokenized, yeah.
And I used it. You know, if they really need a woman on the stage, or like no other founder available, and you get the spot, although you're like 10 times less,
but because of necessity.
Exactly. So I would use any opportunity, but then at some point you feel really cornered. Yeah. So you only can present in this type of very niche segment, and that's what he's also talking about a lot, about being like, okay, the best African writer who's writing in French, and so he's really trying in the book, the characters trying to escape it, but at the same time this also gives them the springboard in the beginning. And so I think it's like a very interesting question, this dilemma. And then we're coming to this meta point. Maybe you can read it, Hussein. You can read how they describe the book actually on the Wikipedia website. So one of the themes, just to remind everyone, one of the themes is escaping the minority badge, and that the book is not the book written by just Senegalese writer or a certain type of writer. It's the book.
And
no?
And like the book also talks about a person, like the mythical character that that completely abandoned everything because he was connoted with this blackness, or this Africanness of him. And now, like in Wikipedia, literally you read Mohamed Mbougar Sarr. He won the 2021 Prix Goncourt for his novel, The Most Secret Memory of Man, becoming the first sub-Saharan African to do so. So back to reflecting to his ethnicity, to his color, to his...
so it's not about the writing, it's
sinners again, sinners.
Sinners again?
Yes, like they push it back in. They're like trying to escape it, like, no, back in, into the category. That's absolutely crazy.
But I wanted to get from you the last part of the book, when he talks about, because I don't know, that the part that resonated with me a lot, that part where he comes back to Senegal, the revolutionary uprisings that were happening, his friend from Congo with a letter. By the way, you didn't spoil it for me, because when I told you, like, I was so disappointed yesterday that they didn't come back to the character, and I haven't read that letter yet. And his friend that tells him that he decided to leave everything and come back to Congo, or Zaire. Congo. And that he's leaving everything, and like all that. And his other friend Sharif, who immolated himself, like he burned himself as a sacrifice. He tells
really intense.
And he tells him that I feel that you lost yourself on that, like, the great political oeuvre. How did that resonate with you, and the sense of the relevance of your literary creative art on a social?
I mean, I think it's a really interesting dichotomy, because I think that Bolano touches that also a lot, like in a world of violence, in a world of political instability, in a world that all these things are happening, what the fuck, what are we doing writing, you know, like what does it mean to write, and is writing something that has to be all the time political, and you have to say like all the time like something. I have not really like an answer, like it's in my way of writing. For example, I have done like really nothing, but when I approach like something, I myself try to be clear on my ethical framework and show it through my characters without being discursive, without having like the possibility of using like different perspectives. But I really think that a writer has like a certain type of political responsibility. I think a lot of Saramago, for example, like the books of Saramago, like they are not talking about politics, but they are talking about politics, no? A little bit like Bolano, like these great writers that have like this political background, and it's really contrasting to other type of writers. But I don't know, what do you think about it?
I so disagree. There's a very cool phrase. We can look up who said it. They say, if you want to send a message, send a telegram. Don't write a book. So, and I also have a very personal story about it. My grandfather used to write poetry, and when I was small, he was already quite old, and all his poetry was very political. He was really trying to send a message. It was extremely bad poetry, okay? and then once I discovered his older poems that were not trying to send a message, and they were amazing. They were full of life, and they were just really taking you on a ride. And that's something I notice a lot. Maybe there are some writers who can pull it off and still create that. Orwell being a good example, for example, who managed to write very politically, and it's still good journey. But the majority, I don't think it can work really out. And life is way more complicated than politics.
I mean, when I say politics, obviously, I don't necessarily mean coming up with a manifesto or having those ideological things or statements.
A message. Yeah.
No, what I mean.
I don't know if a message. But
what I mean is. What I mean is the impact of the political of the ideological frameworks on your persona, on the characters, on the way how life is, in the sense that if you are going to present to me, for example, in this book, we're talking about a bunch of African writers and living in Western Europe, you can't at least be not, I don't, it's not realistic, we're not trying to be realistic, but you can't be what's the right term? It can't feel real if you don't touch on the blackness and on the topic of colonialism, and on that sense, like being like having a political oeuvre doesn't mean that you're
it's not propagandistic.
Yeah,
but
it's
it's not propagandistic, but it has like something behind. Like I remember like when the genocide, well, it has always been there, but like when it was like propelled, like there was on all social media this famous poem from Marwan Makul, if I'm saying it right, and he says like, in order for me to write poetry that isn't political, I must listen to the birds. And in order to hear the birds, the warplanes must be silent.
He got killed.
He got killed.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if we want to talk about the birds and their singing, we have also to. It's my approach. I think it's a really personal approach, but there's something that you are trying to put on your own thoughts, and at the end, writing is a mirror, a reflection of your own thoughts.
That is so true. Before that, you were saying that in the book there is this quote that really great books are about nothing. And then you showed me the poem by Pessoa that starts with "I'm nothing," So connecting this to every book is about the author.
Some of the other
So every book is about the author, and you as a person, of course, you have your background, your history, the culture, and I find specifically in this book, The Most Secret Memory of Man, he's writing so much about escaping the minority badge.
Yeah.
And then in the end, he's writing so much about this culture and about almost all of the characters are Senegalese writers that are writing in French, right? So it's all like coming full circle, and it seems almost unescapable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting that even like when he goes back to Senegal, like his friends like accuse him of first leaving, you know, and being like this bourgeois and having like stay so much time in Europe, and he's actually everyone thinks he came back for the revolution, like oh finally he woke up, like he's going to help us. No, he's doing his shit, he's looking for a writer, you know. So it's at the same time it's not like this it's a circular story, but not in the sense like he came back to his roots, because he never felt them as his roots also.
I mean, I think one of the main focuses or graphical process that he's doing is that voyage, like that the hero journey, or that odyssey of his, like when he touch base on Eliman, on his friends, on Sigadi, like the different paths that those creators go through, depending on like with Sigadi, where she completely got cut off of her family, her country, her heritage, whatever, and she went on her path. Eliman, who did the full circle himself, that he's not sure, his friend. It's all about that journey that is not singular to one, but it's very classical on that sense as well.
Like only one character really comes back, and that's the mythical writer Eliman. All others, they don't actually come back.
His friend, the Congolese guy. He wrote one of the best passages on his letter to, like, his email to his friend. But the funny thing that I kind of also it got me hooked a little bit, and then I wrote the story of Yambo, the writer. So I don't wanna call him Yambo, Mr. Ulogem. He says that basically he suffered of being the perfect outcome or result of tragic colonization, in the sense that he wrote against, because I mean, if you go through the story a little bit, Ulogem was like his oeuvre kind of destructed that Pan-African movements that were happening in the 60s and so on, and like that African nationalism at that time. And his oeuvre came as a critic to that. Obviously, it got the favors of the West at that time, before the plagiarism thing happened, and that after what happened to him, he found himself basically isolated without his African background and without the Western proclaim, and he found himself isolated. And his Congolese friend basically says that that's what we should avoid from Eliman's journey, is to not become those white washed writers, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also it seems to me this Eliman character, I don't know, do you like him? I felt so irritated.
Who, the author, or like
Eliman, the mythical writer, so pretentious. So basically, he writes this genius book. People don't get it. He calls them all sinners, and then he goes on the revenge hunt, which is kind of admirable for, you know, if it's like really for his friend. But my big question was, how does he earn money? Like, he doesn't write anymore.
Such a white thing to.
And he's like hanging out with Borges. Like,
he's cool.
Where's cash coming from?
Yeah, with Sabato and
Grand Beach. Absolutely. I mean, this idealization of the mythical writer, like he can't maintain any human relationship practically. Like he mistreats the only friends he has. He mistreats.
He gets him killed.
He gets them killed, and it's kind of the myth of the mad genius, like, okay, he's a writer, like, okay, he can be shit with his friends and to be shit with people because his brain is in another revolution. And yeah, it's kind of conflicted because it's an idealization of this great genius, no?
So mysterious. He just like travels the world, doesn't write anymore even, like,
and being black in the 60s, how the fuck can you be an incognito, like in Argentina, the whitest place ever in the 60s?
And I feel it's also this kind of big theme in the whole book is about taking writing seriously, as what you were mentioning, you know, something that makes the soul tremble. You should write only about that. Versus taking yourself very seriously. So that's, I think, my issue with the Eleman character. He takes himself so damn seriously. Yeah. And also it comes up a bit in this love story. Also, I think that's one of these irritating moments in the book. Also, the main characters, Diegan and his Aida, his love interest, basically, they take it like themselves so damn seriously.
Did you read the text? Like, who the fuck texts like that? Who the fuck send the messages?
Like the messages. I know, yeah.
I also felt like the writer, like, where did he date last time?
I mean, we have praised the book, but I found like some other contrapoints. For example, I think that when he talks about women, it's like really the male gaze. Like, I felt it was like totally like the male gaze talking about like prostitutes and constructing these dialogues. I really felt like, okay, this is a man writing. Like,
I think all women are hot. The men writing women is like all women are hot. Okay, that's the basis. We do not write about unhot women.
Exactly. And the other thing that I will have in short a fight with Hussein probably is like, I found the way of writing really discursive in some points. You know, like I'm more a partner of like, show me what's going on, and then he puts like these big words, big sentences, long sentences with no comma. Tata is like, I don't think nobody talks like that.
So I'm gonna just say something here because I did even wrote 2 notes on this because I knew that you're gonna mention this. But I mean, honestly, I think that the reception is different from the 3 of us. I personally have, like, this book ticked basically all my boxes. Okay. I think it's one of the best books that I've read in a while, so he really shocked me, like, and he's frankly a very, very talented writer.
Yeah, I'm not denying that.
Yeah, and I think he has obviously these like ekphrastic passages where he's like, it's classic modern literature in the sense that he's like very he's
classic.
Yeah,
classic,
yeah. But I think that comes from the fact that he is a Senegalese writer in France, and he's trying to show that he is able to do that rich, vivid, detailed, sophisticated language of describing and overwriting and so on. But I think personally that although there are a lot of passages like that, he demonstrated in this book that he is also able to do those very explosive short sentences. Like, I will read you just one sentence that I really, really loved about Aida.
The one of the cities.
No, that passage is like is for me. I literally copied it apart, and I want to study it. Like the way but I'm not talking about that passage. But he has this passage when he describes Aida as a city, as a rising city. I think he killed literature there. It's fucking genius. But like, really, it's difficult to do better in that sense. But he has a sentence that he starts. Just give me a few minutes.
Are you going to read it in French or translate it?
Translate, because it's very short.
Okay.
Come on, Aida. Pop up. Yeah. So it's this sentence that, like, very, very short. He starts. I'm gonna read it in French and translate it. Je l'ai rencontré dans un cliché de décor parisien. He starts his chapter, whatever, for introducing Aida. I met her in a Parisian cliché décor, like a cliché setting. That, like, it's a very short sentence, I met
Oh,
her,
that's great.
and it gives you all the information that you need. You know Paris, you know the cliche literary setting, like it's like, and he has, like, I noted a lot of that. He has a lot of, so he is able to do that, and I personally, I mean, he can be definitely too expository, overly adjectival. Like he uses a lot of. But I think, as I said, like this is basically because of who he is. Like he has to overshow.
It's really interesting that you put it like that. And it's part of colonial, colonial literature, no?
Yeah, I like that we all think very differently about the book. I definitely enjoyed it, but I also was irritated out of my mind by a few characters, and you also have your opinion of it. And in the book there is a writing club where they read. It's so meta.
I like the Instagrammers. The Instagrammer is the best.
The Instagrammer character, love it. And they all read the book, The Labyrinth of Inhumanity, written by cynicalist writer in French, yet again, and they all disagree.
Yeah.
And so, and that's another topic I wanted to bring up. They start talking about literature, and there is this also quite strong topic there. Talking about literature and being very passionate about it versus writing. And I had a literature teacher who was very self-critical, and he said, people who can write, they're right. Those who cannot write, well, they become critics. Who cannot even do that become literature teachers.
Awesome.
Wow.
So, what do you think about this talking about writing? And at one point he is also like ashamed of how much they're doing instead of doing something political or changing the world or writing. And what are your thoughts here?
So you're talking to the wrong person, I think, in the sense that like I live for that. Like I love talking about shit.
Well, podcast, right?
And I love giving opinions about like writers that I wouldn't be like a secretary in some sense in them. I think it's like I will ask you like a question that I asked him. Like for me, I really like to get super impressed and embarked into that voyage of your process, your story, your whatever. And I asked Mario this question few months ago. If you would get if a genie pops up now and is gonna give you one of these choices to choose between, to have the greatest story to tell or the greatest style to acquire, what would you choose?
The greatest style of writing?
Or the greatest story?
Or the greatest story in terms of events, like.
How is that a question? Of course, the story.
Exactly. So yeah, we're close in that sense. He's more into the fancy shit.
The style.
Yeah, because he doesn't believe that a book should have a story, anyways.
No, like, it's the style. For me, great books talk of nothing. Going back.
Yeah.
I'm shocked out of my mind.
And that's why for me this book is really impressive in the sense that the feeling until the last 100 pages I got, okay, this is the Bolano-esque sort of, although like there's, but honestly the story is amazing. Like it's really fun.
That's
You didn't like the story?
I
Really?
the ending. I so dislike the ending.
Oh shit!
It was all of this build up. It's literally a thriller, okay? It's a literature thriller.
It's kind of a detective
It's
novel.
Come on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course,
so
detective. It's not detective thriller, like in the sense that there is detectiveness in it, like for the
I felt
entertainment.
yes, exactly. For entertainment, there's detective thriller
Yeah.
element. I thought about Harry Potter and how Harry Potter is a detective, basically.
Please don't listen to our people.
You
It's
bored.
not.
You bored this guy.
Wow.
I think the writer will visit me in
Worse
my
than-
dreams.
Yeah, he's gonna
Yes, yeah.
And yes, but there was all this build up, and I do believe in stories and in plots, yeah, and in characters and where they develop. And so there was this whole build up, and then, spoiler alert, he comes back to his village, and he's the only one who comes back, and he kind of like, and his whole story was he was looking for his mom, and he was
Not his
looking
mom. He's
to
looking.
avenge his friend, and so it was like basically all like, oh, life wins, and it was for me. I agree with the idea generally, but plot-wise, it was just a flat ending for me.
So I will tell you why I really.
I'm happy with non-plot, so
You're out of the conversation.
I love non-plot.
I'm gonna tell you why I really, really, really like the plot and the story.
Dumb.
In the sense that for me, I'm like what I'm trying to do for the last year. I've stopped for the last 6 months, but is to create this mythical character. In the sense that it's a different framework. It's not literature, but there is a lot of mythicality and like big impressive stuff. Like people are impressed by the story, by the person, they are intrigued. Like when you try to create that type of mythical character, in the sense of, for example, Roberto Bolano, when he talked about the real visceralists.
He said.
When you talk about the real visceralists, this literary movement that happened in this pioneer person, Cesare Tinayero, that they're looking for her because they want to understand this graphical poem that I have tattooed. Like the whole story is about this mythical guy, but then he completely trashed the character. He makes it as like this random fat woman that is non-important, and that's not the important story. That's a way of approaching a mythical character, just to destroy it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, or at least most of the approaches that I read, are just leave it open. Like a mythical character, we don't give any outcome, we don't give any conclusion, we don't give any approach. You don't even hear the mythical character talk and whatever, and we focus on the protagonist and the characters themselves. Here, this guy was able to actually keep up with that mythical character and to make it alive and to give some discourse and to still keep it interesting to the end for me. You know, I don't know. Also, that part, I think where probably it really touched something in me is that Africanness in him and that imposed language in him and all that struggle that him as a shit. Our plant died.
Then
It was fresh and beautiful and
Come back to us.
even this becomes
Everything is falling.
Everything
All
is
the
falling
cities.
serious.
Uh-huh.
So he succeeded in not completely kicking him out and putting him inside the story and still keeping me satisfied with the ending. So that's why I really.
And what do you think? This is going to be like the biggest spoiler alert. So the ending, you know, like he finds this, like he finds not Elimia, and he's already dead, but he goes to his house, and one of his wives, he tells him like, okay, he saw you in a dream.
It's not his wife actually. It's the wife. It's the mom of one of the moms of Siga, but it's actually literally his aunt.
Like
that.
Yeah.
True.
Exactly, and it's like, okay, he saw you in a dream, and he told us you were coming, and we should welcome you. And then he goes to his room and he discovers like this package, like this bag, and actually he reads this like a manuscript, and he's telling like, I know you are coming. All this time after I left party, I have been trying to write like another, like something that overcomes what I already did, and it has taken me like my whole life, and because I know I won't finish it, you have to publish it for me, because I won't be able to do it.
I mean, honestly,
And he destroys the book basically.
Exactly, but like
Diagon goes and says like, it's
throw it
bad
in the
book.
river.
Exactly, he destroyed because he read it like, it's a bad book.
Yeah.
It's a bad book. Like,
And he even says maybe every writer has one book in him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I do not believe in. I think it's such egotistical, taking yourself way too seriously, jerking off on your own ideas instead of just jerking off.
Few hours
I
ago.
mean, it's kind of really individual. It's like, nah, it's a shit book. Fuck it, I won't publish it. Who are you?
After all this.
Nah, you know, it's not that good.
But I do believe this whole like idea of that books have to be good. I think pity the reader, this phrase by Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite phrases ever about writing. It's like, yeah, like you write for the audience. If you want to write just for yourself, it's also a thing.
But
But then you're the audience,
It's
you
my
know.
thing.
There is like one person audience. But generally, like you have a talent to tell stories. Tell your freaking stories. That's almost your like you owe the world, you know. You
I love
got
that.
this talent, like you owe to the world to tell stories to other people, to
Yeah.
either make their life a bit sweeter or a bit more interesting, or help with giving the message.
Or more melancholic, like mine.
Yeah, or make cry like Mario likes.
I love how we have diametrically opposed ideas about writing. Like, I've never, like, I can't conceive how you can think of others in writing. Like, think of, like, how can I tune? Like, how can I write for others? How's that? Like, for one, okay. For one, like, I can write for one, I can write for him or for her or for you. In the sense that, but writing for the people.
Yeah, there's I don't know the name, like the Latin American writer that once says like I write for my friends, for 2 or 3 people. And sometimes I think that's more my case also, like more than the audience. Like I want to make proud 2 or 3 friends.
Yes, but I don't think it's contradicting. Like there's the idea of ideal reader. I think Stephen King wrote a lot about it. That you have your ideal reader, and it's one person. I think for Stephen King, it was his wife mostly. And he was like writing for her, but in the end, through her, he's addressing the whole audience.
Yeah.
And so people who are like this one reader, they will, you know, get something out of it. But still, you're writing for this reader. You're not writing to like massage your own pleasure points, you know.
But that's why I think that's why I'm not prolific.
Writing for yourself.
But the ending, I think, I don't know, have you felt that pain? Like, I felt a lot of empathy at the end of, I felt like it was, I mean, there's a magical realism of like the craziness and shit, but like that empathy of, he actually struggled from that first, like that classic thing of first success, you know, like overcoming first success.
Yeah, but it somehow like diminishes the whole story, you know?
It takes away the mythical.
Yeah, but it's what I like actually. It made, and actually one of the characters said that in one moment this mystical writer that never showed his feelings, he showed fear, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like it was the first time I saw him as a human. And I think that the last part of the book deals with something I wanted to, now we can dive in, on failure also, you know. And being a human is also like failing, and writing and taking always back to Bolano, he says like writing is the lost battle, and nevertheless it's a battle you are eager to fight, even knowing that you are going to lose. And that's the last sentence of the book, no? To write or not to write.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Do right. Do not write.
Do right or do not write. Yeah.
The perfect book for writers. That's what I'll tell you.
Really good for writers.
Absolutely.
You want to add something more before your studio falls down?
No, I don't know. Maybe one thing, like there is a statement just in the start of the book when he talks about the labyrinth of the inhumane, and he says only one page is enough to give us the certainty that you are reading a writer, a hapax, one of those stars that appear only once in a literary sky.
It's
Do you like, this is something, for example, that I come back and forth with, like in the sense that, are you able to express genius or creativity in one passage? Like, I think everyone is able to come up with a brilliant passage. I think that the brilliance of the writing is into that nest of creation, of complexities and of construct. You know,
course.
It's not one page, as you said.
It's not it's not like you can write like a great quote, a great phrase, but it has to,
Yeah.
and that's the thing we were talking about, like the work with big W, or like la obra, the or like it's what a lot of people, of writers, when they write a book, they're not thinking in that book on that book, but on how that book comes into terms with a whole project that they have dedicated their life, no? And I think that makes also like an artist. You as an artist can grow in different styles, different things, but you have like a big picture of what are you trying to say, and I think that makes a big difference with one book wonders, if we can to call them like that.
If you subscribe to this idea, then you truly put the full ownership of the work onto the writer. Like also like we were discussing in the beginning. And I do believe readers are kind of co-creating by their imagination. That's what's the beauty of literature compared to, let's say, movies. You really make the movie yourself in your head. You create the whole feeling there. So I do believe that it's on the reader too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that let's not undervalue like the power, at least in my life, and I would like to know about your experience, because we were talking about there's a people that can read a lot, like a lot, but I sometimes have the feeling that these books don't get into them, you know. It's like, oh yeah, I read it was good, but they give like a classification like 8 from 10. And for me, they're like books that are so defining that I think that where I'm standing now, it's because of literature. And there are like different authors that mold my way of interpreting life and to doing the things that I want to do. And there are like some phrases, some books that use like the whole idea of pushing me to go into another country, try other stuff, la la la. This kind of adventure I try to do of my life, they come from literature. No, they are completely. It's a literary story. What I want to make from my life, but I don't know what's your experience.
Yeah, I mean, you're a special case because I know you. And you do live a literary, like, you fictionalize your life, like you like to make up story and make them happen, like in the sense that create and you
for the story. Let's do it because it'll be a good story to tell.
Exactly, he literally sometimes do shit just because he knows that it would be a really great story. Like at a level sometimes suicidal a bit, like when I was like, what the fuck is happening now?
I had this till like 30 years old. And then I was like,
and then I grew up.
Yeah.
I love to live.
But I definitely, like, I have books and works of art in general that really shaped my being. But what I hold as almost what is the term? قدسي حاجة مقدسة.
Sacred.
I was going to say sacred. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, good. Your Arabic is getting better. So what I hold of for sacred is those works of art that blew something in you, like you're like, what is happening? Like I've never seen this before, you know, like something, and you
want that book on the shelf even if you don't read it again,
and you want to tell everyone, and you annoy everyone. Yeah, and those things, like for me, that's why reading, like for me, can be tedious and can be like ups and downs. That there are periods where I read a lot, there are periods where I don't read that much. It's because of those waves. Like I sometimes wait a lot for something to, like this one, for example, I really enjoyed, man. Salma noticed these couple of ways. I really got into it, and unfortunately it doesn't happen that often.
So
for you,
maybe can I ask you if you can pick one book
one
or
book,
story or piece of writing that comes to your mind when you think about like most defining for you?
For me, probably the thing that I read, Zabubiyya. It's a poem. It's a poem from this
how do I say it? He's in a territory in Tunisia that was kind of marginalized in a pre-colonial even period or colonial period, and it's this very street poem, like using very harsh language. Zaboubiya means zib in Tunisian means penis.
Slam.
Yeah, and it's a slam, like we were 1800, and it's a anti-regime, anti-status quo writing that I read when I was 18 and 19, and I was like, wow, in the sense that like you don't need to have that sophisticated eloquence to be brilliant and to be radical and to be strong and to be harsh, and it's brilliant. And the last sentence is هذيك نتاع عوض ما نقبلها نحطها في زبدة. It's beautiful. It's
Can
very
you translate it, the last sentence?
It's very
Hard to translate.
no, not hard, but it's very what's the term, like
Obscene.
it's very obscene.
Dirty.
Yeah, it's
we don't
very
want to
very
cancel.
no.
That's what we don't do. We don't.
He literally says the hands of the colon or whatever. Instead of kissing it, I put it in my penis.
That's the right one.
And
so it's a revolutionary poem.
Yeah,
It's like
and the whole penis.
called Dickory.
The poem is called the Dickory in some sense, and the whole every verse ends with put it in my penis. Put it in, like is this all that way, and it's very very funny and very very strong, like very very harsh.
That's right.
That's so fun. And
That's
you?
so funny. I would say I have two books, one for my internal life and one for my external life. I want to put it like that.
One from Omar and one from
for me, like the Savage Detectives, in which this quote is inspired, was like a book I read when I was in a really low phase in my life, 22, and that book gave like a meaning of my life. And I think that maybe if I read it now, it would be a different reading, but at that time, 22, 23, when you don't know what you're doing, that gave me like a path of what I want to do about my life in a sense of living a poetical life. And that's what and you mentioned it, like from this literary group in this book, like nobody really like writes or something. The Savage Detectives is like the same shit. Like it's a book about writers, nobody writes, and like the discourse of the proposal of Bolano is like, to be a poet, you don't have to write. You have to live a poetical life.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I have this one phrase that I really like. Even when I poop, I'm a poet.
Because you're creating.
Brilliant.
It's not like
it's a state. It's a state of being.
It's a state of being.
You see poetically things, you know.
And what about yours?
I think mine would be a poem also. It was, I think, first poem I've ever learned by heart. It's by Gumilov, and it's called Giraffe. And there, the author is addressing someone else and saying, "Wow, you're so sad. I'll tell you a story to cheer you up." And he tells the story about Giraffe, a beautiful giraffe who's like running through the savannah, and then he's like, "Oh, it didn't help, huh?" and for me, it's just such a, you know, that we tell stories, and we tell stories usually for a reason. We want to change someone's emotional state, or we want to give a message, or we want to do something. But there's life also, and it just it defies often the storytelling.
There is literature until life slaps you on the face.
Yeah. And that's what happens in the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Like life comes along. No?
And also, what the brilliance here is the stories of the stories of the stories.
Oof.
Like
True.
stories inside. So also, have you? I mean, we were in a closing feeling. It feels like I'm opening the gates again. But this is like
second part.
Yeah.
Salme's like no.
Got it. I have to edit a lot of shit.
But have you really took notice of the way he dialogues, the way he writes the dialogues? It's super intense.
Yeah, it's like a
It's
layer inside a layer.
yeah, and it's also pauses in the dialogues, like it's dialogues of that. There is this passage also brilliant one when he switches from dialogue to dialogue by just he says 4 minutes.
Yeah, you need like this book thing, like
yeah.
post it.
I'm stupid because I think that I'm noting for myself and not for the podcast. But whatever. I'm so sorry. Talk about something.
Something else.
But the story inside the story, I think it was like a very skillful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
So about the style, you know, there's
he never uses like these lines to mark when somebody's talking and the next one, and I love that kind of narrative. You know, it's a really fluid dialogue.
Yeah, that is true, and also the character building, like everyone's so fleshed out.
Yeah. And every character has their own arc in a way.
Yeah,
which is not that common. Like the secondary characters have their own arcs too.
Yeah.
But
so this is like the end of the passage of the Haitian poetess, and so she says about like how Eliman can wait. Death can wait. Actually, it waits for days. Everything can wait, even the bodies, even desire, even love, that I didn't do, and it's unforgivable at my age. This is Eliman talking. Not Eliman, the other is her master. Even what's the Polish guy, the master, the writer. The Polish writer.
Grombic.
Yeah, Grombic. So it's him writing. And it's unforgivable at my age and he directly jumps and he say 4 days after the death of Fatima Diop. So literally jumping from the speech of a Polish guy in Argentina talking about him having sex with this poetess and just jumping to with that sex. I think that was
brilliant.
It was brilliant.
That's brilliant. That's a lot of brilliant stuff. Well, I think that was it. Thank you very much, Dash. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the beautiful conversation.
It was a pleasure.
Fun.
Let's do this more often.
Let's do this more often, and yeah, I hope you guys like it and follow what we try to do here.
Got this part.
Like, comment.
Like, comment.
Like and comment. in this.
Yes.
Awesome. So how was it?
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.